Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Devil's Advocate Trades Edition. Today, I have a very interesting character with me today. And it was interesting because his assistant reached out to me, and apparently just by him coming through, I asked him how she found me. And he said through Podpitch, which is really interesting. So Alfredo Burdowski is with me. Thanks for being with us, Alfredo.
It is a pleasure, Lisa. Lisa, thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. So I will tell you what I really like. I went and of course, I research a lot of my guests. I don't want to heavily research my guests because I want our conversations, to be authentic. And in order to have that true authenticity, what happens is you need to be able to hear the story for the first time. Otherwise, you're kind of faking it. And who wants fake, right? But I will tell you this. I went and watched The Truth Tastes Funny. I didn't watch the whole thing through. I know that you have a background in mental health, that you yourself have gone through bipolar, and that you're very open and willing to talk about it. And that's something that's great because I think a lot of people don't really understand what bipolar disorder is. And I believe that a lot of people are living with it they're not recognizing what it is and how to help themselves. So please tell me about this.
Lisa, I must confess that I talk a lot about being bipolar, but I shouldn't be seen as a hero about it because I had no option. I had to talk about bipolar, the way my life developed. I had a big crisis, and my crisis went public on front pages in newspapers.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
Okay, and my big event, my big crisis went front page on newspaper from Japan to Ireland. Then
let's back up, Alfredo. Let's find out about you. We don't need to focus on the bipolar. Let's focus on what your story is to get you where you are.
Yes, and it has to do with bipolar. I was on top of the world. Lisa, I came to the United States from Argentina, and I was a rabbi of a congregation in 2013, a prestigious congregation in Westchester. When I say prestigious, I had the CEOs of most companies, of great companies, not most, great companies as congregants. I had half of Wall Street as my congregants and top lawyers on the best firms in Manhattan. Then I was rabbi to CEOs, to the most successful people. I was on top of the world. I had an office at Central Park, facing Central Park. I went there every morning. I put my feet on my desk, a cup of coffee, looked through the windows, and I said, this kid from Argentina just came to the United States with nothing. And now it's sitting on top of the world.
Yeah.
Okay. Until everything collapsed in one morning on 2013, June 19th, when I was arrested. And I was arrested for impersonating a police officer.
Oops.
Yep. Not a good one.
Nope.
A congregant of mine, who was a retired detective, gave me one of those shields, shields for family and friends. It looks like a real shield. It's a small copy of his that policemen give here in the United States to friends and family, which, by the way, should be illegal. Because why a policeman is going to give a replica of their shield to a friend and family if not to gain favors?
Agreed?
Actually, it's terrible, yes? It's unbelievable. Actually, he said to me, Rabbi, with this, you will have no problems. Then I was manic at a point. I didn't know it. I was going through mania.
Okay.
I was taking the wrong medication, an antidepressive. And when they gave me the shield, basically I went with grandiosity and mania through the highways of New York, telling people how to drive. Showing the shield, drive this way, drive that way. I didn't touch anybody. But until I showed the shield to a young lady, who I learned later that she was the fiancée of a policeman in town. And I was arrested. I was arrested in 4 different places. I went on the news, viral. Actually, the press gave me a name.
What was the name?
the road rage rabbi.
I love it.
And once they call you the road rage rabbi, you're done, Lisa, because you become viral. You're like, okay.
A good name. Got you a lot of exposure.
Yes, a lot of,
Maybe not good exposure.
Yeah, what they said, not all publicity is bad. It's good. No, not all publicity is good. I tell you. I can tell
not
you
all
that.
publicity is good.
Then I was fired from a job.
Mm-hmm.
I was hospitalized, became suicidal. And I had four cases. As I said, I was on all the newspaper after newspaper, and I fell into a deep depression. And I went for 8 months on a couch, on a fetal position, unable to move, unable to function, darkness, obscurity, no sense of future, until one day I felt an energy that lifted me up the couch and went upstairs to my study. And on my desk, I found something that I'm not sure how it got there. I found a file, a folder, a yellow folder. I opened it. And there I saw the results of a test on positive psychology I had taken a few years before. And I read my results of my top strengths: creativity, love of learning, curiosity, perseverance, and courage. And something, Lisa, turned on inside of me. Alfredo, that's yourself, your essence, and you forgot who you were, who you are. And a month later, I was back at school with depression, with court cases, to social work school, and became a social worker, and then a consultant on positive psychology. And clearly, I was clearly a voice for mental illness and, bipolar, not as an option, but very proud. Okay, with no fear.
Yeah. Well, when you go through it, yourself personally, physically, mentally, you go through it, and then you obtain the education behind it, it's a lot easier to speak on. And people want to listen to what you're talking about and what you're saying, especially when you yourself have gone through it, right? It hits differently for people. When someone says, oh, well, I know a lot about this, or I've only been through this, but when it's both, because what happens is you kind of have like a codependent partner when you both have been through it. And when someone knows about it, they're kind of like your therapist. But when it's both, it's received differently. It's okay, they understand me, but they're going to help me get through it properly instead of just going, oh, I get that, and just validating everything that you're saying or doing. They're validating some of the conditions, but they're saying these are the strengths, or these are some of the supports that you need in order to help push past some of these things. So I think it's a great thing, because I will tell you, being in an industry where there's, I do a lot of networking, and I'm in Canada. And so I go to a lot of these like multi networking events, with multi-industry networking events. I don't do them as much anymore because I got grumpy when I was doing them, because I would go into a room filled with like 200 people, and more than half of them were a consultant of sorts. And it was all, and I'm kind of like, oh, are you a consultant because you went and got the educational background to be a consultant in an area? Or are you a consultant because you went through something and now you think you're an expert? And a lot of them, not all, because there was actually, I would say out of half the room, a good handful of them had the education behind them. The rest of them went through something, or saw it happening with a lot of people, or stood beside somebody and went through it with them that way, not, personally went through it, and so decided to become a consultant. So I love when consultants that have the educational background can also, enrich their knowledge by actually understanding it from a personal level. So I think that's great.
I will say something talking about devil advocate that will gain me a lot of enemies, but I think that this is, the right podcast to say it. I think that we have a real problem that consultancy and coaching are not regulated.
I agree with you.
Okay.
I agree with you.
To be a therapist, it's regulated. You have to get insurance. Okay. You have to pass a licensing test. Consultants and coaches specifically, they work with people. There is no way to get out of personal stuff, even if you are not doing therapy. Issues of the origin story and issues about how people feel and their past, they're all going to come up, okay? Because they're unavoidable, and even if coaching is about the future, as I say, and therapy about the past, okay, the lines are very blurred, and there is no check and balances, and there is no supervision or anything for coaches. And I've been in many coaching programs, and there are a lot of coaches on trauma, on health, okay? Nothing is regulated. It's completely the Wild West. Go, say you are, just say you are a coach, go forward, charge people, and end of the story. And I think that at some point that will end, and coaches will have to be certified and have to pass a license of some nature, and distinguish, like you said, those who are really prepared and solid, and those who are not.
Yeah. Well, and so I'm a consultant. You're a consultant, but we have education, right? And that's a big thing. Like I was sitting there, it was funny. I was actually just writing my independent consulting resume when I work alongside other companies to be an independent consultant. And I was going through all of my education. And I remember every time I have to rattle off my education to people, they're like, yeah, that's a lot. They're like, you've done a lot. And I'm like, yeah, and I want to know that I'm an expert of sorts in my field. I don't necessarily like the term expert, because expert means you kind of know everything, and I don't really know everything. But I mean, you're always learning. But I will tell you, it's because I branched in so many different areas, right? So I've got a lot of construction background, it's certifications, designations. And then I went in and I did human resources, and I did psychology, and I did criminology, and I did lots of those things. But criminology and psychology are kind of more, well, criminology for sure was more of an interest. Psychology and cognitive behavioral therapy are ones that I mentioned, but they're not ones I focus highly on, in the sense of that I did it more for me. So because I'm dealing with people all the time.
Right.
So understanding the psychology of people and in yourself, you're going to be able to take a step back when you're having conversations where they become heated or conflicted. Because the one thing we are as humans is very emotional. And so a lot of times we allow our emotions to make the decisions on how we're going to move forward, because somebody made me feel this way. Now I'm angry. Now I'm happy. Now I'm sad. Then there's going to be a direct correlation on how I respond based off of that emotion. Right. So, and that's where I tried, when I'm still working on my CBT. So that's my cognitive behavioral therapy. I'm not too far off from obtaining it. And it's interesting because it's a hard course to go through, because you are the subject. Technically, when you're going through the course, you have to look at yourself, how you process, how you think. Is it positive thought? Is it an emotional thought? You know what I mean? Like, how is it making you feel? And then what's the logical side of it? And where in the middle are you making a decision?
By the way, you met CBT, these are like the kind of stuff I like, that I use, but one thing that was, I would say, the most transformational point in the story is when I saw the results of my top 5 strengths of positive psychology. And since I began exploring positive psychology, I became certified. And one thing that I discovered, what is mind-blowing, is like in the United States, and I imagine Canada is the same, 70% of people do not know their top 5 strengths of positive psychology.
I can tell you in Canada, they would know it more than in the States.
They would know more?
Yeah. Canadians are a lot more self-aware. Not that I'm trying to shut down the states.
No,
But we are.
it's okay.
We tend to be more self-aware, and we have more access to those types of tests designed for that type of psychology in Canada.
Okay, that's great. That's great. Here in the States, 70% from studies do not know specifically the 24 strengths of positive psychology, which are very specific, and the top 5, which are the ones you function best. What we also know from studies is that knowing your top 5 strengths, you are 9 times more prompt to flourish by knowing them. And by applying them 19 times more prompt to flourishing. Then 70% of people are working below their potential just by being ignorant of the strengths. And that's basically what I dedicate my time to help people find the strengths.
Okay.
Go
ahead.
No.
Okay, so I had a lady on my podcast. Her name is Sonia Perron, and she is from Quebec. And she does something very similar, and it's called the Kolbe test. Have you heard of this?
Nope.
And it's similar in understanding your strengths, right? So it's 5 different elements. It's understanding like the cognitive mind. It's understanding like just the way she talks about it here. Let me see. So it says, I'm just reading it off my email. So, because I want you to, because I think these are all very similar, and I like what you're talking about. So, let's see. So, 3 parts of the mind: natural reaction to change and effects and perception. So there's the affective, the cognitive, and the cognitive. So there's the feeling, thinking, and doing is what she talks about. And so I did this test with her. She was kind enough to run me through the test. And it was very fascinating, the things that you find out. And then I've also done another similar one with another person, which was the flourishing mind. I think that's what you said, right? Flourishing mind. So, and it's called Flourishing Life is that's another one that I did. And that one was with Mona Cooley, and she's with Cool Family Solutions, and she also helps with that. So you're located in the United States, correct?
Yep.
So you're a great resource for anybody in the States that's listening in regards to mental health, but also being positive, getting into that positive mindset of understanding yourself and what your strengths are. Right? Yeah.
There are hundreds of tests out there.
Oh, I know.
Okay. When it comes to tests, the question is, are they reliable and valid?
Agreed.
And the only way to know that, it has to do with peer review. It has to do with the volume of people who take it, and if they are subject to scientific validity and reliability. Okay. Then I use what is called the VIA, the values in action.
Yep.
Okay. This is today the most taken test in the world.
This one is?
Yes, the most taken test in the world. The VIA, the values in action.
I thought the Myers-Briggs test would be the most taken test.
No, this is by far. By the way, I am certified in Myers-Briggs too. Then I use it too. But today, the VIA is the most used.
Okay.
Then it's subject to peer review. There are thousands of journals written, and is the most reliable and valid test of its kind out there.
Okay.
Then I, clearly every test has its own merits, and I do not know all of them, not even 10% of them. But the reason I'm using the VIA is because on my work, I rely on science, and positive psychology is a science. We had labs of positive psychology Here in the States, in many countries, we have PhDs on positive psychology. We have masters in positive psychology. We have scientists, psychologists. It was founded by Martin Seligman, who was the president of the Association of American Psychologists.
Mm-hmm.
Then positive psychology is a science backed by all the scientific measurements that are out there. Then that's why I do positive psychology, and I'm very strict on that I need science behind me.
Sorry, that's my child.
It's okay.
So you said positive, you call it positive
psychology.
Okay, positive psychology. I
Positive
want to write it
psychology.
down. And then what's the testing that you do called?
VIA, values in action.
VIA?
VIA.
Mm-hmm.
Values
VIA.
in action. Then I need to, when I work with people, to work. There is another one, by the way, that just came out on the market, which is called the purpose factor, which is about purpose,
Mm-hmm.
which is now a hot topic. Everybody is talking about purpose. People are lacking purpose. Companies are lacking purpose. This just came a few months ago. It's called the purpose factor. It has 10 years of research behind it to map the purpose of a person, of a company. There are today only around 300 people licensed because it's new. I'm one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell you, that's going to change the landscape of instruments, the purpose factor. I think it's going to be revolutionary
Mm-hmm.
for working with the instrument.
Yeah, well, I mean, for me, I think that anything, like you're talking about the VIA testing and, there's so many aspects of bringing things into being a revolutionary aspect. I think that when people have an opportunity to take a minute to get to know who they are or where their strengths are or what, and a lot of mental health practitioners talk about not saying weaknesses, saying other qualities that require more attention or care, where you need to bring them up or help strengthen them. But these ones come more naturally to you. So, instead of fighting the other ones, you just you work on which ones you want to work on to help, get you to where you need to go. But the ones that are just easy for you, focus on them more.
Actually, Marty Seligman, who is the founder of positive psychology, he wrote, his first book was on optimism.
Okay.
And there is a chapter on depression.
Yeah.
And there he shows that more you use your top 5 strengths,
yep,
less depressed you are. There's a correlation between using your strengths and diminishing depression.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Then there is a great advantage of using strengths to fight, mood disorders.
Yeah.
And by the way, that's what happened to me. That's a story. I was depressed on the couch. I looked at my strengths, felt energized, and went back to school. Now, why did I go back to school? I went back to school because look at my top strengths: creativity, love of learning, and curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then some other person with other strengths may do something else. Somebody who has love, gratitude, and humility may go for volunteering somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to align your strength with your goals.
Yep.
And when it's alignment between strengths and goals, you soar. You find yourself. That alignment is essential.
Yep. I agree with you. And it's like you said, when you went back and looked at that test and saw where they were, it was almost like a light bulb went off and it gave you direction and why you needed that direction. And it was your keys to success for yourself. Right. And that's a really powerful statement to make when you're looking at when things have gone completely where you feel rock bottom. You're in a high depression, things are going wrong, you know, like you feel like your reputation has been ruined, because when you have something happen that becomes so public, it's very damaging mentally and emotionally. You know, I always make a joke that when you get haters, it means you made it. But that's just looking at the bright side of it versus the, like, you know, instead of, you know, people will come online and they'll be really sad and upset about something someone has said to them or how they've been insulted. And I'm like, that's a them problem. That's not a you problem, right? If people have nothing but hatred to spit at you, then that's on them. Right. It's a reflection of who they are as a person. So that's why I make that comment to kind of be, you know, it's just a cheeky comment to be like, don't worry about it. It's not a you problem. It's a them problem. But in order to have that direction and move through life and regain the pride in yourself, because that was something that hit your ego, it hit your pride. And I know that especially a man from Argentina has a lot of that. So
you know Argentinians.
I do. So that would have been really hard on your soul, you know, and I can appreciate why you did what you did. So it's a great story to talk about a success after feeling like you were in a hole. You felt like you were being buried alive and you had to dig out of it. And I guess I'll say, everybody's different, but I'll say by the grace of God, there was something that lifted you up and pushed you to go look at this document to say, get some direction. Stop feeling sorry for yourself. It happened. Let's do something to fix it. Right. And I think that was your own energy. That's my belief. People will say it was God, but I'll say that was your own energy saying we're not done yet. There are bigger things for us.
You know, I wonder, you know, many times, Lisa, what was that energy? Okay. I am very rational. Mm-hmm. I come from philosophy. That was my doctorate is on philosophy. Then I love ideas, and I invested a lot of time studying ideas, thinking and teaching philosophy. But I have also seen and experienced so many unexplained things, like thinking about somebody and the phone rings and that person is calling you, or calling my brother in Argentina and asking, are you okay? And saying, you're calling me at the right moment. I was going through a crisis. I mean, you know, like I have experienced so many of those events where, you know something not from your intellect, you know it from somewhere else, you know it from your guts, for your instinct, you know, synchronicities, things that happen at the right moment, at the right time. Yeah. Then this was one of those situations in which I have no rational explanation. I just felt it. You know, I have read many books since on the intelligence of the stomach, in which actually our stomachs are intelligent. There is an intelligence that comes from the guts. And sometimes, actually, we know from studies that the wisdom from the stomach is faster than the wisdom from the brain. Okay, and when you say we have butterflies in the stomach, or when you meet somebody, and you have a sense of who this person is before you think so much about, before you begin talking to the person. Okay. Without judging or prejudging, clearly, that's not good. But also there is something like, you know, like you get this energy, this whole feeling about the person, that then something of that kind took place that morning, in which I felt that need to move and go upstairs and look there. Yep. And you know, there are some things that you must enjoy the mystery and and just dwell on the mystery and be in awe and enjoy the awe moment as
I
much
agree.
as explanations for everything.
Yeah, I agree with that. So I am very spiritual. I believe that there are lots of things around us that help us, including, that will kick in some of our senses that we're not otherwise utilizing in the moment. So I could be sitting in my living room and I have not cooked anything, and then all of a sudden I get an aroma of something and I can smell it. So I believe that there are things around us. That's my personal opinion. And that there are, some people will call them spirit guides. Everyone has a different name for them, but I just believe that they're a team behind you, your ancestors, people behind you that want you to succeed, which is when I say, it was your soul wanted more. It knew it wanted more. So your soul team came and lifted you up and said, we need to, this is where you need to look. It's almost kind of like if we're being joking about it, it's almost kind of like, oh, he's not getting it. We just need to point him in the direction, So because our soul team will get frustrated with us from time to time, and they're just like, okay, it's right here. Go look at it. Read it again. And it's like, why am I looking at this? And you think to yourself, especially when you look back at that moment, you weren't fully all right there. It was just a moment where you just had this inclination to do something and you did it. And then you're like, why, how did, like this, I did this, like, why am I looking at it now? Why am I interpreting it now? And why is it clicking now? Because everything happens for a reason at the time it's supposed to happen. That's my belief system. Right. So, there are some,
yes. No. Finish the idea.
I was done.
No, one thing that I want to give to the listeners, we've been talking about knowing your top 5 strengths, and I had this feeling that people are saying, okay, I don't know mine.
Right.
Then I want to tell people how to find their strengths.
Okay.
Otherwise, then if they take they take the smartphones, okay, right now, and they text me the word positive.
Possible?
Positive.
Okay.
Positive, okay. To 33777. Okay. The word positive. After all, we are positive psychology. Then the word positive to the number 33777. I will send you the 24 strengths of positive psychology, a couple of questions for you to ask, and you're going to discover your top 5 strengths. Very easy to do, and I will give you a couple of exercises, because remember, if you know them 9 times, more flourishing, if you apply them 18 times, then it's very easy. I used to give Lisa my last name, A. Burdowski, text me, send me an email to A. Burdowski. I cannot even pronounce my own last name. Then I came with this wonderful method of texting the word positive to an easy number, 33777, and you get it. Then everybody should know the strengths.
Okay.
No excuses now.
So you said text 33777. So I'm someone who's super leery about texting numbers like that. So I will probably hit up my producer to make sure we're all good, so that nobody has a problem.
Yes.
And be like, can we do that? Can we do that?
It's all great, but those who are listening and feel that, they just will get back a couple of pages with the 24 strengths, a nice chart.
No, I agree. I think it's great information that you're offering. I apologize for interrupting you. I'm listening to what you're saying, and I think it's a great thing when people can get their hands on information that they would otherwise not know. But I just want to make sure that because there's so much going on in the tech world. So I'm always like, can you just double check to make sure that it's good for Canada?
Triple check.
The States might be able to do it, but I want to make sure it's good for Canada.
Triple check, no problem.
Yeah. Because it's not, most people are like, here's my number on WhatsApp. Here's my number on, like a different, so you have a different text number, which is usually when I get a text number like this, it's from like, like there's there's a new sale on at like Il
No,
Maquillage, or there's a new
there is a company called Textiful. Textiful.
Text in full.
Textiful. You choose a word.
Yeah.
Okay, you choose a word that has not been taken by anybody else.
Yep.
They assign to you a number. Always 33777 or, a number like that.
Yep.
And then that's the way it works. It's a company that is a system, like a software that allow you to communicate with people in the easiest way.
I gotcha. Yep. Makes sense. Okay. Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I think what you're talking to me about is interesting, and I like talking about the mental health side of things, especially when there's resources for people. So with my audience, I mean, if they want to give the 33777 a whirl and they've done it before, then that's fine. But for the other ones that are leery like me, we'll double check it for you and make sure it's all good to go, because we want you to get that information, right? So
no problems, really.
So other than me texting your assistant, is there another way that people can get a hold of you or find you?
Well, when you go to that page is going to have my information too.
Which one?
On the positive 33777, when you get my page, when you get the information, you get also the information about how to contact me.
Okay, but if we don't do the 33777,
yes, you can use my email. My email is the easiest way.
Okay, what's your email?
It's abordowski@gmail.com.
You spell it for me.
Yeah. Burdowski, B as in boy, O, R as in Robert.
Yeah.
O, D as in David.
Yeah.
O, W, S, K, I at gmail.com.
At Gmail.
And I respond to emails all the time.
There we go. Perfect. Okay. Is there any other stories you want to tell me before we wrap up?
No, I mean, a lot of, one thing I did last year, Lisa, I read 30 biographies.
30 biographies.
Of people with mental illness. Okay. Basically, I bought the top 30 autobiographies of people with different mental illnesses. And what I tried to do is to read the stories and to see if I could find common ideas that were repeated in all the biographies. Almost like take all those 30 stories and condense them and systematize them. Okay. And I got like hundreds of index cards. Okay. And at some point I would like to write like a book about what are the core experiences that I found repeated on the 30 biographies. But one of the index cards has to do with losing sense of yourself. That mental illness give you a distortion of the self, okay, in which you lose sense of who you are, because the illness, differently from other illnesses, you have diabetes or you have whatever you have, it is in some way easier to disassociate the illness from the self. But the mental illness, because it has to do with your behavior, then we get a lot of confusion about who is the true self here, the illness or something else I am. Then the mental illness is an illness that attacks the sense of being, the sense of who we are. And people begin defining themselves by the mental illness. Instead of I have bipolar, they say I am bipolar. I never say I am bipolar. I always say I have bipolar. Because bipolar is only one part, one fraction of who I am. then I always tell people, you are not bipolar, you have. Then one of the things about knowing your strengths, especially your top 5, is that you begin defining yourself by the positive part, who you are, and you find your true self. That's what happened to me when I read the 5 strengths. I was defining myself as a sick person, and suddenly I define myself, I am a creative person.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I am a courageous person. I am a lover of learning. And I think that was what created the shift. Because once you know your strengths, your natural next question is, what do I do with them? And it moves you into action.
Mm-hmm. I like what you said when you said, I have bipolar, I'm not bipolar. And I think that's really interesting because there's so many diseases, and I air quote it because diseases is very broad. Like some people call, like alcoholism a disease, and then there's bipolar disease, there's, narcissistic disease. There's, you know what I mean? Like there's all these, there's double personality or split personality disease. They call it a disease of sorts or disorder, one or the other. And I think that when you claim it as who you are versus just a part of you, I think also creates a mental click in how you might behave or how you might respond to things, because those things aren't your identity. They're just a part of what make you.
Exactly.
Right. So I think that was a really solid piece that I took from what you just said there. I like that. That was a good thing. And thank you. And so
Thank you.
I appreciate you coming on Devil's Advocate and having this conversation with me, because, we're finishing up Mental Health Month for men. And I love when men come on and we have these candid conversations about mental health and the journeys that we can take with them. So thank you so much, Alfredo, for coming on.
Thank you, Lisa, for the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so for those of you that want to reach out to Alfredo, you can, if you guys want to take a look and discover different things about yourself. I'm going to encourage you to reach out to us at Devil's Advocate, and then we'll send you all the information in regards to him. And then that way you guys can find him yourselves and get the information. So I think that's great. Thank you for giving me some information on how they can reach you and obtain that info. Okay. Because knowledge is power, right? So I love that. But anyways, thank you everybody for being part of the show. I appreciate all of you. And let's see, what else is there? We should have, I believe Adam will be coming on the following week, and he's a cool guy. I did a podcast where we talked about Adam, so that was fun. But regardless, don't do anything crazy.